on to the real reason we're here, and that's to talk with Amanda about.
Oh, it's not about the drinks?
No. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Amanda.
So I am.
We already know, of course, but.
Yes, I'm a real estate attorney. I mean, this is interesting. I like your lives. So I'm a real estate attorney here in Bloomington Normal. I represent buyers and sellers in commercial and residential real estate transactions. Doing it, going on 6 years that I've been with the firm that I was with, and before that I was a divorce attorney here in town. So.
Which do you like better, Amanda?
I like this better. Real estate, yes. A little bit better than divorce cases, but there is drama in real estate too, so hopefully you have good agents on both sides that can get through the drama.
So, what types of services do you provide, Amanda?
So I will represent both sellers or buyers, and I represent them through the entire real estate transaction. What that entails is that when your agent sells your house or you purchase a house, I review the contract from the beginning. I open a file with my office, and then I'm with you every step of the way. So I am going through inspections with you, going through any issues with you. If I'm on the seller side, I'm drafting all the required documentation. And then I attend the closing.
So one of the things with the contracts, so in our area and most of the state, they switched from where you put the offer in and then it switches to a contract after, which is something that the attorney used to do, is draft up the contract. Now with the one step, how does your role look different with that than it used to? Say, I'm going to shut the door just so it...
So there are still agents that use what you're referring to, the purchase agreement, and making it go to a contract. But with what she's referring to, we call a one-step contract. There's a 5-day attorney review period that was never in the old way we did it. So in that 5 days, I can request modifications of the contract. I can disapprove a contract during that. So heaven forbid something were to happen, which has happened to a buyer or seller during that 5-day business, is 5 business days from the last day signed. I can completely disapprove a contract and get somebody out of that contract because something happened, something catastrophic happened, something they can't sell their house anymore, they can't buy the house anymore, they lost their job. So it actually increases our work as an attorney and allows us to act more as an attorney, whereas before we were just taking that purchase agreement and just copying what you had. So it allows me to do my job.
Yeah. And so that's a little more standardized, but as the market shifts and people interpret different things different ways and get creative in making their offers more or less appealing, you have certain things that you may add or want to change basically to protect your client, whether they're the seller or the buyer that you're protecting.
Right. I mean, the market is as everyone knows, crazy, for lack of better words right now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many buyers that want houses and there's not as many sellers. So there's a lot of buyers waiving inspections or waiving rights to do certain things within the contract. And my job when I review that is to close any potential loopholes that could affect the seller or the buyer later. So my job is really to get that all straightened from the beginning, so it's not a week before the closing and we have issues.
But there's always people that find loopholes.
Oh, there's always people that find loopholes.
But your job is to try to eliminate as much of that as possible.
Exactly, and there's always
within the
people
law and the contract.
Want to follow the contract. I mean, that is just unfortunately what happens. But that's why you're an attorney. So your attorney can advocate for you.
So another thing you guys do through your office is the title work, which we're not going to get into a whole lot, but I know that confuses some people. What is title work? What's involved with that? Yes, it's required in Illinois, but what, in a very simplistic form, are you paying for on your, when you see on your settlement sheet?
Title insurance. Yeah.
Title insurance.
So there's multiple really great local title companies, and our office does have one also, Alliance Land Title. So what happens is the seller orders title insurance, and what the title company does is they prepare what's called a commitment. What they're doing is doing a full search of the property. So they're trying to figure out what mortgages are against the property. Are there liens? There could be a water lien.
What's a lien?
So a lien is, I'll use the water bill as an example. Somebody hasn't paid their water bill with the city of Bloomington for, we'll just say 6 months. The city files this lien against the property, and in order to sell that property, it has to be paid off. And so the title company
They're looking for those types of things.
Exactly. So the title company's job is to report all of that on the commitment. And then the seller's job is to clear that, meaning make sure those mortgages are paid. Make sure that that buyer is taking title not subject to anything that would affect them later. So something that the title companies do, and then as an attorney, we're checking all of that.
Because those things go with the property, not the owner. So that's where some people get confused. They don't understand. Here's another example. Somebody may pay to have a roof replaced, and then
they don't pay the contractor.
I shouldn't say pay to have it done.
They didn't pay.
They have a roof replaced and they don't pay the contractor. The contractor can file a lien against the house. You would think it would go with the person that ordered the work to be done, but it doesn't. If that changes hands,
if they filed against the property, which is much more advanced that we'll get into, but there are certain liens that go with the person and not the property. But if it's filed correctly against the property, that seller has to pay it off before they sell to that new buyer. Because we don't want our new buyer to have any obligation when it comes to that.
Right. Well, and the bank probably wouldn't.
Yeah, and the banks don't like it. They get a little fussy.
So, what does it cost to have you represent somebody on a transaction?
So
buyer, seller, commercial.
Mm-hmm. So we have a flat fee. My flat fee is $400 for a seller or a buyer for representation on residential. Commercial, it just depends on the transaction.
So none of those attorney jokes about the unlimited billing hours and stuff exist here.
I'm not a divorce attorney anymore.
So it's a flat rate, you know.
So it's $400. There are things like if you need a power of attorney that are additional fees. Commercial is so different, I'm sure you both know. So it starts at $500. It really depends on the complexity of the transaction and many other
because
factors.
We don't use standard contracts and there's other things involved with commercial. Except for, I'm assuming if it's just like a residential rental, 1 through 4 unit, pretty straightforward, it's the same?
I typically just charge the $400, yeah.
It's more of like your big commercial properties that you can't put on a standardized contract.
We're selling farm, we're selling a commercial building, something to that effect.
Multi-use.
Exactly.
And why do you love your job, Amanda? What do you love about your job?
Well, right now I'm enjoying this cocktail. The thing for me that was always important when I became an attorney, which apparently I decided when I was a little girl. So most girls are like, I'm going to be a ballerina. And apparently I walked around saying I was going to be a lawyer. So that's what.
So you knew from the get-go.
Apparently, that's what my mom says. I don't remember that. But it was always important for me to help people and to have that personal interaction with people. So when you're buying and selling homes, 90% of the time people are happy. You get to form this relationship with families. You get to see how happy they are moving on to a new stage in life or starting a new stage of life. So it's really just the personal connection that you form with everybody.
Yeah. So with the market moving so quick, is there any advice you would give to a seller, which I know would be very different and probably opposite advice of what you would give to a buyer?
Right.
But do you have advice you would give to either about things to beware of or to be careful of? Because with the market so fast, I feel like a lot of sellers, I don't want to say are greedy, but they're
seeing all the offers that are out there.
They're seeing all the offers and they're hearing there's nothing on the market and there's all these buyers and so they've got a certain thing in their head already. Mm-hmm. And then you've got seller or buyers feeling the pressure because they see that there legitimately aren't houses in the market for what they're looking for and whatever. And so they're, I don't want to say overextending, but they're stretching maybe what we would normally recommend somebody do.
Right.
So what's your advice in those situations for both?
Well, for both parties, the same advice is to know that once you've signed a contract, you're in a contract. It's a legally binding document. And we are seeing, myself and the other real estate attorneys here in town, a lot of people backing out of contracts, sellers and buyers. And the thing to remember is you're in a contract now. It's because it's legally binding, you can go to court. So I think the most important thing is for everyone to make sure that you really want to do what you're doing.
And understand what you're signing.
And understand the terms. And so that's one of the things, if I'm working with a first-time home buyer and before you sign the contract, even with your agent, you can reach out to me and I'll explain all the terms. Mm-hmm. I'll explain what that means because a lot of people have said, well, my friend did this or I heard this. And it's different depending on, are we in Illinois or what county
Well, and each situation's different.
Mm-hmm.
Their financial situation might be different, or
Absolutely.
the type of loan, or...
I love that. My friend did this.
Yes.
Love it.
And then you're like,
My
where are
grandma
they?
told me that when they bought a
In
house,
1976.
Yeah.
which it doesn't apply to
In
today's
California.
in California.
Right.
It doesn't apply to anything that goes
No.
on here.
So, and I think for buyers, I think you really have to make sure that you not ignore that pressure, but you pay attention to the fact that yes, your agent is telling you, hey, there's 12 offers on this house. We have to make a quick decision. But make sure you really want that house. Make sure you're willing to pay that money that you've offered just to beat the person behind you.
I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
I know
Sure.
Casey and I, we've talked about this so many times with the market like it is, and all of extra training and discussions and meetings, everybody's like, oh, your buyer has to pay over asking, and they have to do this, and they have to do that. And our approach is like yours. Yes, so this is how I've approached it, and I know Casey has as well. Basically, are you going to have to overpay for this house? In all likelihood, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay with that? If you're moving in 3 years, are you okay with you may lose
Absolutely.
money? Are you okay with these things? Because these are the facts. It's not that it's not moving, or you might not have to overpay, or you might, but are you okay with that? And if you're not, then maybe now's not the right time, or maybe that's
Exactly.
not the right house for you.
And market
And
values are up.
and don't just
Oh,
make
yeah.
don't make it work because you feel like you have to. Make sure that it's going to work for your situation.
Right, and with the way that values seem to be higher right now, and like you said, if you go and sell in 3 years, we don't know that the values are going to be that way.
Nope.
Maybe they're higher, maybe they're the same, maybe they're lower. But do you want to pay that extra money? Do you have that extra
Are you
money?
okay if it's not
Right.
there and you
Right.
lose money?
So think of more than just the immediate decision.
Yep.
You
We
know,
have a comment from Beth.
Go ahead.
She says Casey was an early negotiator. We used to tell her we don't negotiate with terrorists.
That is my favorite line, and I tell my kids that at least once.
Negotiator.
Well, no, I tell so are my kids. They're my.
I feel
spawn.
like I could have negotiated anything.
Oh,
when I
Beth,
was
Beth,
little.
that is like my favorite quote, and I tell my kids that at least once or twice a week.
I was really good at negotiating curfew myself.
Oh.
Like, oh, you said 11, but it takes 20 minutes to get home.
Oh, you sound like my senior.
So, like 11:20?
Or just
Or-
don't come home.
Or yeah, I mean, you sound like
Or
my senior.
I might be a little late because I ran out of gas,
Yeah,
but maybe not.
it's always something, right?
It's always something.
Yeah. So, and what about for the sellers? What advice would you give the sellers to make sure that, you know, they're exploring all their options and entering into a contract that is, puts them in a spot that's the best they can be for the market being what it is?
I feel like sellers have to, one, make sure that they have some place that they can go. Because we do have sellers who are out there that haven't found a house yet, and then when they don't find a house, they want to back out. But again, you're in a binding contract.
Yeah.
So again, be very sure of your situation and what you're doing. Make sure that you understand the terms, that you understand, especially for sellers, like how you have to respond to inspection requests. That's probably
Yeah, that's
where I spend all my time.
what do you think the number? I believe that. What do you think? And would you agree? Because I don't deal with it like you do. I deal with it from another side. But I would say 9 times out of 10, it may be regardless of the current market, but like
Right.
typically 9 times out of 10, if a contract falls through, it's inspections, right?
Yes.
I mean,
It's
that's not a
inspection,
statistical actual
Yes.
fact, but
not an actual
On
number.
I would say on
Not
our
for
numbers.
financing. Yeah.
for us,
That's pretty much.
I mean,
what
I've
it's
only
been.
had probably 2 transactions fall through.
Yeah, I haven't really. Yeah.
In your life?
Yeah, can you believe it?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm gonna keep that stuff together. They signed a contract, Amanda.
Knock on some wood.
I know.
I
Right?
know.
It's like,
I
oh,
know.
she's right over here.
You're like,
We've got like 12 pending right now, so they're all just gonna start falling
Nah,
apart.
Don't say that.
I know, knock on wood.
Everyone knock.
She's
Everyone
like
knock.
jinxing
No,
us
it's
over
not
here.
gonna happen.
There's
Because,
salt over here.
no, well, here's the thing, and this is where I feel like we differ, is that we make sure that people understand what they're signing
Right.
before they sign it. I don't want somebody to enter a contract that they don't understand. I don't want them to have unrealistic expectations of what they can ask for on an inspection after
Yeah.
it's inspected, or a seller to have unrealistic expectations about what's going to be expected of them.
I mean, I think that's the most important thing
That communicating up
a
front.
real estate agent can do, or the attorney can do, is explain to you, like, you see this, that the paint's messed up on the wall. The seller's not going to fix that. You know, if you see something wrong when you're putting an offer in and you want it fixed,
You gotta ask
you
up
gotta
front.
ask for it up front. So just addressing those things up front.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really, you have to understand what you're getting into. We make it sound all doom and gloom, but then in the end you get a house.
Oh yeah, no, it's really
It's
fun.
amazing.
It's stressful,
It's just like
but
one-
people like attorneys and agents to take a lot of that stress
Yeah.
on for you.
And
makes
it doesn't have to be stressful. I mean, there's
No, that's what I'm
No.
saying. We do a lot. There's
we
transactions that
take
are
on
like,
it, yeah. We
Well,
take-
and that's just like, I would say the inspections, I mean, they're like a little part of the whole piece. And
Yeah.
they're usually they're fine. You know.
as long as they know what to expect up front.
I like
Yeah.
that you came in with the positivity.
Well, they are.
They are fine.
They
I
are.
would say
When you have a good real estate agent
9
and you
out of
have
10
an
times
attorney.
they'll be fine. It's okay.
That's one of the things I'll
Right.
say too, is that I do hear a lot of people, even my own family members, hopefully nobody's watching, that are like, I don't need an attorney, I don't need that extra cost. It's $400, you're spending $150,000, $200,000 on a house. So in the end, $400 isn't
Oh,
very
man,
much.
you guys were cheap enough as it was.
Woo! Just kidding, 400.
That's like, what are we doing?
He's
with
like,
this?
stop talking. But it's to make sure that you have that lined up in the beginning. Because I think that what often happens with people is that if something goes wrong, then in the end they want to get an attorney, and then we're backtracking through everything. So I kind of look at
And you couldn't give them advice up front, right?
I mean, I could have talked to them about it, but it's kind of like car insurance. I mean, you have to have it. I mean, I guess not everybody has it, but you hope that you never have to use it. So even if I just show up at the closing for you, which is not all I do, and there are no inspection issues, it's worth having me there.
I want
Because-
different one.
Because you also go through like
Go
the
for it,
title
Lauren.
commitment and like
Yes.
you go through all of that.
I go through all the figures. I want to make sure that as a buyer, did the seller's attorney
And there are
calculate
often
things wrong?
times that there's things calculated wrong.
Right. Did you get the right tax credit? Did they?
Depending on the attorney and the title company.
Maybe not.
She's not naming names. Clearly,
I am
so-
not naming names, but there's times that
We just had this happen.
Yeah.
we just had this happen, and we've never had it happen with you guys.
Well, thank you.
But
yeah, I
we've
mean-
had some interesting settlement sheets come through.
And that's my job. So if there's no inspection issues and you're a buyer, I'm still making sure that those liens we talked about are around that title, that your deed is correct, so there's not an issue later.
Yeah,
That I
because
explain-
what's the cost if a deed gets filed wrong?
so
Don't you have to go back and
it's
pay
just
to refile?
It's the $38 in McLean County.
Okay,
but
so
you
that's
have to
not a lot,
yeah.
but still.
But you still then have to pay somebody to do the deed.
Well, that's
redraft the
right.
deed,
So
and
so it's more than the $38.
Yes, I don't know, probably like $50. I'm not sure what people charge. If I messed up something, I'm just gonna fix it for you. So.
Oh.
I mean, I think just again, like the thing I stress is really having your team of people working with you from the beginning. So
Yeah.
your real estate agent, I think it's always better to use a local lender. I found from working at the title company and from my experience being an attorney that if you use a local lender, the process does seem to go much smoother. You can take your paperwork to somebody, you can see them. The only thing just to remember right now is also that we as title companies and attorneys' offices are limiting our access to our buildings.
Yeah.
So there are some, the only person that can come in is the signing party and their attorney. So we have some people that weren't expecting that, but that's another reason to have a friendly face like me there, because then I will be there to explain everything when your agent can't be there next to you.
I was telling Adrianne actually the last closing I had was with Pat.
Was it?
It was at Alliance. Just hanging out.
Yeah, Pat,
Yes.
how long's Pat been an attorney? 'Cause you've
So-
got a great mentor, right?
So yeah,
for real
so
estate.
Pat O'Rourke is the owner of our law firm and the title company. I can't tell you how long he's been doing it. If I say a year, I feel like I could age him. Maybe 30 years.
It's been a long
But
time.
if that's wrong, nobody report to him that I said that. I feel like it's over 30 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably accurate.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, so him and I are both in the same office. We cannot be on the same transaction. That's one
Yeah.
thing that has popped up.
Oh, you can't.
We cannot.
No, I thought the same attorney could be on both transactions if the clients agreed.
We don't do that. So it's a conflict of interest for an attorney to represent a buyer and a seller. Because if there was an issue that was to arise, and then
How can you
I
represent
can't
both?
represent both sides. And so with Pat and I being in the same office, it's essentially us being, the same attorney, meaning like we share the same staff, we share the same everything. So we don't represent on both sides. if that were to happen, we recommend another great local real estate attorney. We have several that.
Yeah, there's a lot of great
focus.
attorneys in town, right?
Yeah, there's those of us that primarily just all we do is real estate. So if that happens, I just refer to one of the other amazing local attorneys. Yeah.
So,
Thanks,
all right.
Amanda, for coming.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. Thanks for shedding light. If you have
Yeah.
other questions related to the contract, real estate, you can direct them at us or Amanda. I know Amanda's great about just answering people's general questions if they have them.
Yeah, we'll put her contact information in the comments, or like the office's contact information. So you can call them if you have questions.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the cocktail.
You are.
Our Earth
It's
Day
a,
cocktail.
yeah, it was perfect for Earth Day.
It was.
Right.
I didn't even know it until I started.
It was.